Welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Carver-Stelman. Today, we'll be going through our 2023 top 10 offensive tackle ratings for draft prospects. Adam, let's talk Seahawks.
Let's talk draft, which is what we've been talking about this entire week. Look, I think it keeps hitting me almost every time we start doing another one of these as to how deep these actual position groups are. I'm waiting for one to be like, well, yeah, this one's a little bit on the skimpy side, which I think certain ones are. Linebackers, obviously one of them. I think safety is another one where you've got a few guys that are good and there's a lot of nobodies. But offensive line, the Seahawks could reload big time in this draft class. We have at least one guy that's coming up that's going to be in Lewis that's going to be working on the last year of his rookie contract. Phil Haynes assigned a 2-year deal, so there's going to be room and spots opening up on this roster. And if we were going to reload, this would be a hell of a draft to do it in.
Oh, for sure. And Evan Brown only signed a 1-year deal. So
exactly,
you're looking at our interior line, 2 guys are on 1-year deals, another guy's on a 2-year deal. Have a couple rookies, stacking the deck a little bit, hedging your bets for future seasons.
That's the way to do it.
All right, well, let's get underway. As you can see, we are doing a top 10, and it is each of our top 5, and then a few prospects in the mid rounds and a few prospects in the late rounds to keep an eye on. So let's get started. At number 10, I have Braeden Daniels out of Utah, and Adam has Cooper Hodges out of Appalachian State.
I do.
So for me, I like Braeden Daniels. I actually don't think he's going to be a late round prospect. I think he could slip into the 5th round potentially, depending on where the run on offensive linemen happens. For me, he's somebody with a lighter build. He weighed in at 294. I would like to see him gain 10, 15, possibly 20 pounds. As long as he can still keep his athleticism, he's going to need to gain weight in the NFL. One of the things that causes, because he's a little bit undersized and lighter, he tends to get bull rushed. And so he needs that weight to help him anchor. But listen, he has position versatility. He has experience at left guard, right tackle, and left tackle. And honestly, he might be a better guard, but I would try him at tackle. You never know what you're going to get with some of these guys that are athletic and use technique. Sometimes they can hang out there on the edge. So I would give him a shot at tackle. It's the more premier position on the line. And then if that doesn't work out, you kick him into guard, you're good to go.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but specifically for me going through, and we'll see this as we kind of go through our list, not only here, but when we take a look and switch to interior offensive linemen, position versatility was a big deal for me. And the reason that is that one, I know that the Seahawks are really big on that. When they look at the draft, they want to see a guy that's played multiple positions. So they know that even though they might be drafting him with the idea that he's going to play a certain position for them, they want to know that he's, one, well-rounded, and two, if that doesn't end up working out, they want to be able to move him around and know that he's going to be comfortable whatever position they put him in. It's been a theme along the offensive line for quite a while. It's a little bit different these last 2 years. Obviously, we drafted 2 guys last year that were specifically drafted to be bookend tackles, and that's where we put them, and that's what they played the entire year, and they did really, really well at that. But in the case of at least Cross, we know that he can kick in and play guard if that's necessary because he has experience doing it, and especially in the offense that he comes from. That was something they did at Washington. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. But you'll look, and I know, like I said, with you and Braeden Daniels, when you go through my list, a lot of these guys that I have experience in multiple positions, and several of them, especially when we get higher up in the list, you're going to see guys that have not only had experience in multiple positions, but have excelled at multiple positions. So this is going to be fun. And I think, again, this is a deep draft class that the Seahawks are going to have lots of bites at the apple if they do want to reload the offensive line. So.
Yeah, and I think you made a mistake. Abe Lucas is the one you're probably referring
sorry,
to.
Yeah, you were correct. Not Cross. My apologies. Yes.
But yeah, and honestly, he could make a really nasty pulling guard because he has elite short area quickness. And so I could see if they do take an early tackle prospect, there is a chance Abe Lucas might kick in, and then you can see him pulling around the edge and just burying a defensive edge or linebacker, and that could be a nasty block.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So how about your guy, Cooper Hodges out of Appalachian State?
Yes. Appalachian State. Yeah, so obviously a smaller school guy. When I was going through this, most of the guys that I have on this list are guys that I did actually watch game tape of, guys that I saw during the season and was like, hey, I think this is somebody that Seahawks could take a look at. When talking about Hodges, Appalachian State, obviously smaller school. The only time I would have watched an FBS game is if it was like a spring game, or if specifically there was a highlight to watch. But the reason I kind of landed on Cooper Hodges is when I was kind of going through and looking at some of these guys that were possible options in the later rounds. We're talking, for me, this is Cooper Hodges. If anybody's looking at him, this is a late sixth, or through seventh round guy. He doesn't have a lot of buzz going to the draft, but this is another one of those guys that I've looked at and said, okay, there's potential for this guy to continue to grow. He's played at right tackle most of his NFL career, but this is a really athletic guy, kind of like Braeden. This is not one of those really, really big bodied guys. He's definitely more of an athletic build guy. And he uses his athleticism to his advantage. He's really good with his hands and anchoring himself along the line to get that initial push. He's got a lot of things he has to work on, but for the most part, this is a guy who acquitted himself really well, obviously at a lower level of competition, but has the ability, and I think the area to grow to where if somebody, took him on and either put him on the practice squad or brought him into camp, he could surprise them in his ability to break into either that swing tackle position or even, I don't think the Seahawks specifically, but for certain NFL teams, might even have a shot at starting week one.
Wow, that's some pretty high praise. For me, I see Cooper Hodges as an undrafted free agent. He is an interesting prospect. He's very experienced. He's played in 51 games in college, so a lot of reps. And one thing I like about him, he plays through the whistle. This is one of those guys that's high effort, high motor. He doesn't take any plays off. So he'd be a good teammate, a good team guy that you can have in there. I don't see him challenging for a starting role. For me, he's an undrafted free agent, practice squad candidate, but a developmental guy who you can develop good fundamentals, good technique out of all that experience that he has. And he might help your team 2, 3 4 years down the road.
Yeah, when I was saying that he has a chance to fight for a starting position again, I'm not for the Seahawks because I don't think he can sniff either one of our tackles at this point in his development. But there are definitely teams out there that have been, that have just guys playing those either right tackle or left tackle positions. And I think the attitude and like you said, his stick-to-itiveness on the field, him playing through the whistle, he does not take plays off. He's involved in every second of every single play on the field. So and that's that's something teams look for. So like I said, I think if this guy makes it into a camp, he might surprise people. Maybe not ended up starting, but you will see him during the preseason if he makes it into a camp for sure.
All right, something to watch for. At number 9, I have Blake Freeland out of BYU, and Adam has Jackson Kirkland out of Washington. Blake Freeland, he was the offensive lineman who was the freak of the combine. Really athletic. He had the fastest 40. He had the highest vert. He had testing metrics off the chart. Big guy, big frame. Arms only came in at 34 inches, which is the average for NFL tackles. He'll be fine there. We probably expected him to have a little longer arm just due to the size of this man, but that's okay. He meets that mark. He's the most athletic lineman in this class, and you can see it. You can see it in his kick step when he's coming out to get ready in pass protection, and he's driving back. You see that footwork, really good footwork. One thing he needs, though, he needs to get functionally stronger. he might be great in the weight room, but when he's on the field, I don't see him play with strength. So he needs to find some way to get that functional strength.
Yeah, I love Blake Freeland, and again, I mean, this has kind of been a theme, especially through some of these positions we've already looked at. But I mean, BYU is one of those schools that I watch every year. You know, it's a family tradition. My family's huge BYU fans. Again, the only game that I attended live this last year was BYU's. Why can't I think of the word we're looking for? Bowl game. Thank you very much. Thanks. And he stood out to me, and originally Freeland stood out to me for maybe a negative reason. When you look at him next to the rest of BYU's offensive line, he looks a little undersized. He's not. I mean, this guy's 6'8", over 300 pounds, but he is a lean 300 pounds. This is not a big, this is not one of those big-bellied, offensive linemen. This guy's pretty lean. And I think part of that's, he grew up as a multi-sport guy. He played track. He was a standout basketball player at high school, and it shows on the field. He moves really fluidly, and he uses his athleticism and strength, because I do think he's got at least upper body strength. He's a pretty powerful dude. So he moves guys using his length and quickness, as opposed to just powering through guys. But he was able to open up a lot of run lanes during their bowl game. So as the game went on, I kind of watched his technique. He started standing out for a lot better reasons. The fact that he just looked like the smallest offensive lineman on the field. I'm a little higher on the You're going to see Blake Freeland show up on my end a little bit later as we go through these numbers. But yeah, I'm pretty high on him, and I would love for the Seahawks to take a look at him. I think that swing tackle, even though I think Stone Forsythe has kind of secured that position over the last couple of years, just because he hasn't been able to break into the starting lineup. I think there's room for competition at that position specifically, and I think Freeland could take it pretty easily.
Yeah, really athletic, and that's what I want. I want athleticism in my tackles so that they can deal with some of these freakish speed rushers that the NFL is bringing in these days. But yeah, so how about your guy, Jackson Kirkland, out of Washington?
Yeah, this is a guy you're actually going to see when we do interior offensive line too. Kirkland's one of those guys that, again, has played all over that offensive line. He's played both guard spots and both tackle spots during his time with the Huskies. He spent most of it at right guard, and that's kind of where he secured himself in the later years. The problem is he can't seem to stay on the field. I don't think he's actually played a complete season so far in college, and that's kind of why he's fallen so far down on this list. But when he's on the field, he has been a standout player for the Huskies. Yeah, he's obviously a pretty big guy at 6'7", over 330 pounds, or not quite 330, I guess 320 pounds. He looks like your average, like an offensive lineman. I mean, I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but he's super intense. You see him with his helmet off on the sidelines. He's that rah kind of go get him guy, getting everybody else fired up. He's definitely one of those guys that stands out on television when they show those shots on the sideline, and that's kind of where he caught my eye. I mean, obviously, the Huskies are the local team, or at least they were when I was living in Washington, and the team that I've rooted for specifically. So I got to follow him pretty well. He's been one of my favorites this whole process. Obviously being from Washington State and growing up there, and then obviously playing, or I guess technically he's from Oregon, but the Northwest. So the Seahawks know this guy pretty well. They've had time to scout on him for sure. I'm positive that they've taken at least a couple of looks at him through this process, and if, again, depending on how this board shakes out and where the Seahawks target different positions in this draft, if they want to wait a little bit longer in order to target some of these interior offensive line guys, I'd love to see them take a look at Kirkland.
Yeah, no, he's an interesting prospect. He has some challenges with leverage. I think that might be him dealing with his height. Needs to maybe get a little lower. Some of those injuries may have affected that as well. So that's going to be a big medical that the teams have to do. But yeah, he's started for 5 years in college. And like you said, he didn't play every game those years, but he does have a fair amount of experience. And hey, last thing I'll say is, if Costco has taught us anything, it's to trust Kirkland.
Nice plug.
All right, coming in at number 8, the first of our mid-round tier, I have Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse, and so do you, Adam.
I do.
So for me, I think Bergeron has shorter than prototypical arms. There's a good chance people might try to slide him into that kick inside interior lineman category, but he's athletic and he has an extremely high motor. This guy, I think, can play the tackle position in the NFL primarily off of his technique and his effort. It might be one of those where he's a multi-position backup, sort of a utility offensive lineman. That might be a good role for him for his first 2 or 3 years. But yeah, he has experience. He started 1 year at right tackle, 2 years at left tackle. Yeah, I like this guy. I really do.
Yeah, I think Bergeron's another one of those guys that's kind of getting a little bit slept on. And again, I think that's because this is a really, really good offensive tackle class, especially at the top of this draft. Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at his numbers, whether it's the number of snaps or pancake blocks, the number of hits he's allowed, this guy's numbers are right up there with these top tackles in this draft. I think he's very prototypical for a tackle. I mean, that's 6'5", he's got pretty good arm length. They're maybe a little bit shorter than you're looking for. I think he's just under 34 inches. But this is a really aggressive guy. When he gets his hands on a defender, the defender's done. He has a little bit of problem mirroring when you've got a rusher that's not looking to bull rush and engage him right away. His sidestepping, short area quickness, I think he needs a little bit of work on that. He's tested really well. The man's an athletic freak, but he does have a little problem mirroring defenders that get that really quick first step off the line and try and go around him. But yeah, if you go back and look at his numbers, they are on par with a lot of these other top tier tackles in this draft. So I think he's one of those guys that's being slept on.
I agree. I think he might fall a little bit, but he's one of those guys I don't see getting out of the 4th round. I think somebody's going to take him prior to that point. Going on, our number 7. For me, I have Cody Mock out of North Dakota State. And this is where Adam has Blake Freeland slated in his number 7 spot. So as far as Cody Mock goes, played tackle. He's on the list as a tackle. I like him at tackle. There's a lot of talk of him moving inside. He has experience inside. He showed at the Senior Bowl that he does have the ability to play center. So I know that was a positive for a lot of teams who were grading those guys out there during Senior Bowl week. He's a former walk-on. Gotta love that. He's a converted tight end, so has that athleticism. And we talked about experience with some of these other guys. Cody Mock played 58 collegiate games. They have the true playoff system in the FCS. And as you know, North Dakota State has been a pretty powerful school there at FCS. So he's made deep playoff runs, and that has benefited him with experience. He has really good lateral agility. He uses that to mirror, and he uses that on his kick step out in pass protection. He's a punishing run blocker. PFF graded him in run blocking at a 91.2. He makes you wish you didn't line up across from him when they need to run the ball. It's pretty impressive. He's another one of those guys who has those short arms, so we'll have to see what NFL teams do with him.
Yeah, look, I love Cody Mock. I'm way higher. He's way higher on my. I don't want to say I'm way higher on him than you are, but he is much higher up on my list. Cody Mock, for me, is my number 1 target for the Seahawks for the offensive line, and it's really because of that versatility. This guy, like you said, has played every single position along that offensive line. He never played center in a game during college, but he again showed at the Senior Bowl that he can absolutely take a snap if needed. I love this guy. Like you said, converted tight end. He also just looks like a badass NFL player. That long red hair, that big beard, big hulking dude. He's missing his 2 front teeth. I love it. He's fun to watch. He's an athletic guy that moves really well and just looks like he belongs on the field. I would love to see him in a Seattle uniform.
Yeah, I would love to see him in a Seattle uniform as well. Once again, I like versatility, and he's probably the most versatile lineman in this draft.
Absolutely.
All right, coming in at number 6, I have DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State, and you have Darnell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee. So for me, DeJuan Jones is just a mountain of a man. I mean, this is
for
he's
everybody,
massive.
not just for you.
Yeah.
Everyone would look at a 6'8", 360-pound guy and go, "Whoa."
Yeah. In fact, the mountain from Game of Thrones might be like, that's a big guy. So DeJuan Jones is 6'8", 370 pounds. He has 36.5-inch arms. I mean, talking about being able to reach out and touch someone, he comes out of his stance and he's hitting those defensive linemen right as they get a chance to stand up. There's no way that they can get an arm to distance themselves from him because he can outreach anybody on the field. I see him as a right tackle only. That's where he played in college. That's where he's comfortable. I listened to an interview with Taylor Lewan. I think it was during the combine, actually. And he talked about how offensive linemen can have right-handed and left-handed characteristics. He said he is a left side lineman only. He said when he goes to the right side, he kind of gets lost. So who knows? Maybe DeJuan Jones is a right side only guy. We'll have to see. But he is a punishing run blocker. That is a lot of mass that man is moving.
Yeah, I look. Could you imagine him on that right side with Darnell Washington next to him, Abe Lucas then kicking into guard, and us just running the ball off that right side every single time and dominating a game? Yes, you could. Because that's what would happen if those two guys lined up together. I'm a lot higher on Jones than you are. You're right. He does not have a lot of experience at left tackle, and when he has been put in that position, he hasn't played up to what his physical gifts show. I still think that's a lot to do with just the way they bring guys up through the college system. There's not a lot of technique training. They don't generally try guys out at multiple positions. They come in, they say, okay, this is where you're going to be, and that's what they leave them at. He's just such an interesting prospect. I mean, we've already talked about the size. I mean, the man's huge. There are not guys that come out of college playing football that look like this. He's massive. He's long. I mean, the man's wingspan makes most back. Like Zion Williamson has a shorter wingspan than this guy. For those of you who don't know, Zion Williamson is a basketball player, a very big, long basketball player. Yeah, I can't wait to see this guy in the NFL because I do think that he's going to dominate wherever they put him. I think, he's probably going to have to start out on the right side. I would love to see some teams give him a chance on the left side because, again, his physical gifts are just at another level. And I think with the right coaching, if you can find a way to take advantage of that length and strength, he will be dominating in the NFL for a long time to come. So, I'm really high into DeJuan Jones.
Yeah, I think he'll have a decent career if he can stay healthy. Not that injury is a concern for him. It's just when big guys have injuries, sometimes it takes longer to come back. So I want him to stay healthy because I'd love to see what he can do in the NFL because he's just such a unique prospect. So your number 6 is Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright is my number 5. So if we go ahead and just talk about our number 5 prospect in our top 5, Darnell Wright, for me, he is a very intriguing prospect. He's a plus pass blocker. He is definitely a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. I see him as a left tackle. I know a lot of people think that he's a right tackle only guy. I think he has the versatility. And if you want an example of that, just go watch the Alabama game. Darnell Wright shut down the consensus
number 1 overall prospect,
defensive prospect, Will Anderson Jr. He completely took him out of that game. I think Will Anderson Jr. had a 45 or 50 PFF grade for his efforts in the Tennessee game. He was absolutely eliminated by Darnell Wright. And that is saying a lot, especially for what people are saying about the type of prospect that Will Anderson is. Now you have to look at, who's this guy who's that good to match up with him? And that's Darnell Wright. He's a guy who just comes to play every single snap. He's got these powerful, heavy hands. When he gets a hold of you, he's arrived.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously we've got him pretty close together. I think there's a chance that Darnell Wright sneaks into the first round. I think it's more likely that he falls a little bit and is kind of a early second round guy. Maybe even teams trading up to kind of get him at the top of that second round. But yeah, look, out of all the linemen that we're going to talk about, I think he might be the most polished offensive lineman. If you go back and look at his number, I mean, you can go back and through all of his college years. I think he was the number one offensive line recruit coming out of high school. I know that there were a lot. LSU and Alabama both put out offers to him. They definitely wanted him, but he ended up going to Tennessee. And the man started over 2,000, played over 2,000 snaps at tackle, whether it be the right or left side. And I believe that he allowed a total of 3 sacks at left tackle and 5 at right tackle his entire college career. His last season, where he played over 800 snaps at right tackle, he allowed 0, no sacks, and a total of 2 QB hits in 800 snaps. Yes, like you were saying, when he gets his hands on you, you're done. You're done for the day. Might as well sit down. You're disengaged. He is a great player. I don't see a need for the Seahawks. He's one of those guys, because I think he is a bookend tackle, whether you want to put him at right or left. I don't see him as a target for the Seattle Seahawks. Again, we've already talked about the possibility of kicking Abe Lucas to the inside and having being a guard, and that might be what happens. And if that's the case, the Seahawks may take a look at right. But yeah, the only reason he's not higher up on my board is because I just don't think he's a target for the Seattle Seahawks. He's a great player. I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL, and that's why he's on my list.
All right. Do you have anything to say about Cody Mauch before we go on?
Yeah, you've got him too low on your list. This guy is going to be a player in the NFL no matter who drafts him and what position he goes in. The reason I love him is because of his positional versatility. I want the Seahawks to get this guy. I need the Seahawks to get this guy. I don't think they're going to spend a first-round draft pick on him, but man, that number 37 pick's looking like a Cody Mauch pick to me.
Wow. I probably would go with the other one in the second round. I think he's going to fall a little bit, but I love his versatility. Once again, there's just something about him. You want him on your team. Coming in at number 4.
And I do.
I have Broderick Jones out of Georgia, and this is where you have DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State.
Yeah, again, go ahead. Sorry, yeah. I forget how we do this. Go ahead.
For me, I like Broderick Jones. It gets really tight in my rankings when we go to these top 4 guys. Broderick Jones is going to go in the first round, without a doubt. I actually think Darnell Wright will go in the first round as well, but that's because of the value of the position tackle. People are going to maybe stretch and make sure that they get a guy in that first round. But Broderick Jones, he's athletic. 35-inch arms, prototypical left tackle. And here's a good stat for him. He had a 99% pass block efficiency rating last year.
Is that good?
Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. 99%. I like him. I think he's a good prospect. Somebody who will have a decent career in the NFL.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing this guy dropping out of the first round. I think that we could see a big run on the offensive line in that first round. I think there's a chance that as many as 5 or 6 guys go there, and Broderick Jones is certainly one of the guys that's going to be there. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second offensive lineman off the board. I think we both have the same guy as our number 1 prospect at the offensive line position, but he's definitely pushing that. He's been rising up boards all off season. So yeah, I think somebody's going to take a shot at him in that first half of the first round.
There are actually a few scouting outlets out there who have Broderick Jones as their number 1 tackle. And there are other teams who are hearing rumors, and they've mocked Broderick Jones to go as the first offensive lineman off the board. So we'll have to see how it shakes out. It's very intriguing. I like him. I like a couple guys more than him on my personal board, but these guys are all so close that it's not a huge gap for me.
Right. We can move on. DeJuan Jones is just a freak of a human being. I think has just an insane ceiling, and that's why he cracked my top 5.
Excellent. So at number 3, I have Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. And this is where you have Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. Anton Harrison, in 2022, he allowed 1 sack the entire season, which is pretty impressive playing in a conference like the Big 12. And I think he's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. He does have a little bit of work he needs to do in that area, clean up some technique. He's a left tackle in a right-handed offense because you don't want him to be setting your edge on off-tackle runs to his side. He can do it. He'd be better at it if you put a tight end on that side when you're having that off-tackle run. So that's why I said left tackle in a right-handed offense. Let's get your power going the other direction. He has a really good kick step. He can be beaten inside, though. So if someone gets him moving out and then gives a swim move or a move back to the inside, this is where he has problems, and sometimes he doesn't recover in enough time to be able to get that inside move.
Yeah, that's my biggest knock on him is just he kind of over leverages himself in the pass blocking game. Like you were saying, he has a tendency to just kind of lean really hard into one side or the other and allows guys to get around him. But I mean, obviously it hasn't hurt his game. Again, 1 sack during his last year in college. Yeah, I like him. I think this might be the only guy that you have in your top 5 that I don't have in my top 5, and that's only because I had to put Cody Mock in my top 5. Otherwise, Harrison would have been there.
That's fair. All right, how about Paris Johnson Jr.? Why is he your number 3 offensive tackle?
Because he's not my number 2 or my number 1. So this is a guy who I think again, I think most of the offseason there's been one guy that's been mentioned as the pretty much consensus over one or number 1 offensive lineman, and we'll get to him in a sec. Paris Johnson at the beginning of the offseason was kind of listed as that close second, could make his way to be the number 1 offensive lineman taken. And he's slowly but surely kind of fallen down draft boards. I don't know why that is. I didn't attend the combine. I didn't interview the guy, but he's been slipping. And part of the reason that I have him pushed down to 3 on mine is because I've seen him slip down draft boards as the offseason's gone on. I've seen several where he goes as the 5th and even 6th offensive lineman taken. So I don't know why. Again, I don't know why that is. I think part of it might be because some people are just getting really high on some of those other guys, like I do with DeJuan Jones. But yeah, he was he's a standout player. But when you come from a team like Ohio State, where everybody's a standout player, you can kind of get lost in the shuffle.
That's fair. I see him as a prototypical left tackle. Once again, he has the size you want, the experience you want. He actually started at left tackle and right guard, so he has good offensive line versatility. He has, once again, that right side and left side experience. There is one negative, and that's that he can be beat on second action moves. So when the initial engagement happens with the offensive and defensive player, he's really good at setting that move. But if the defensive lineman goes to make a second move, that is a power move. So he tries an outside swim, something like that to the outside, and then all of a sudden he comes in, gets a hand in Paris Johnson Jr.'s chest, and bull rushes him. This is an area that he has a problem adjusting. And it's something that can be cleaned up with coaching. I don't have a problem with that going forward. The reason that both him and Anton Harrison are higher than Broderick Jones is I like their potential. So that's what pushed them a little bit higher. But like I said, the 2, 3, and 4 for me are basically on the exact same plane. I like all 3 of these guys. And Paris Johnson Jr. is no exception.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
And I kind of gave it away. Paris Johnson Jr. is my number 2 player on my board. And this is where, Adam, you have Broderick Jones. Which leads us to both of our number 1 offensive tackle prospect in this draft. And that is Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. I think he's a great prospect. He does have slightly shorter arms. But honestly, with the rest of his skill set, I don't care. He is athletic. He's consistent. You know exactly what you're going to get. He was playing in a good conference there in the Big Ten, and playing in that conference, he had a 93 pass block grade by PFF, which was the #1 pass block grade in the nation. So he's out there doing work. A lot of that is probably because he had to go up against Aumavae in practice every day, making sure you get good technique, because when you got to deal with athleticism, you got to find a way to do it. So
Aumavae is a guy that the Seahawks, especially Seahawks fans, need to be keeping an eye on. This is a guy that's been one of the top 30 visits to Seattle, an edge guy that can also play inside. I see a lot of Michael Bennett in his game. The man's ferocious, but he's like if Michael Bennett looks like he worked out the way Michael Bennett actually did work out, because he is just built like a mountain.
Yes. But as far as the offensive tackle goes, yeah.
Oh yeah, we were talking about offensive. Sorry, Peter Skoronski. Look, so yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered all the bases with Skoronski. When you go back and watch tape of Peter Skoronski, it's clear why he is the #1 prospect at the position. He's almost flawless out on the field. The man doesn't make mistakes. He's a very smart player. He knows his position. He knows his assignments, and he's just effective in everything he does. The only reason why there's been talk of him possibly slipping and not being the #1 overall guy is, again, because his measurables aren't, exactly where you want them to be for the position, and that's it. But if you just go back and look at tape, he's the best player at his position.
Oh, for sure. He's somebody who, if a team drafted him and immediately moved him to guard, they probably don't know what they're doing, because you at least let this guy try to stick at tackle. He has been so successful there throughout his career. And the key thing is consistency. He is consistently a good player at that position, dealing with not in the NFL, but potentially NFL caliber talent going up against some of these teams that he goes up against. I am real high on Peter Skoronski. I would love for the Seahawks to get him if for some reason he was to fall, or the Seahawks were to trade back from that #5 selection. I would be perfectly happy with Peter Skoronski.
Yeah, in his 3 years starting, he has never allowed more than 2 sacks in a season. In all 3 seasons. This man keeps his quarterback clean. So, yeah, I agree. If a team drafts him as high as they're going to have to draft him to get him, and then immediately kicks him inside, there's been an evaluation mistake.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's the Let's Talk Seahawks top 10 offensive tackles show. Thank you for listening.
Sorry.
Thank you for listening. As always, go Hawks.
Strong finish. Go Hawks.